we are going to be painting our Happy Birthday tier tray kit. Before you get started, the first thing you need to do is cover your work surface. So this is my paint table, so it doesn't really matter, but you need something to be able to dab your wedges onto. So I recommend opening up the box that your kit came in and using that. Or if you have some heavier duty paper, you don't want it to be thin because the paint will just tear through the paper. So you want like a cardboard material. Another thing I recommend getting before you start is get like a paint cup or like just a plastic cup and put just a little bit of water in it and a dry paper towel. If you plan on using your detail brush. I sent this just in case. We have some really small areas with this kit. So this kit is for more of the patient people. So for instance, these little candles, as you can see on mine, I painted my stripes white. So I actually did this kit all with the wedges that I send you with, but I also sent you with this paintbrush in case you prefer that. Another tip you can do, if even that much is just, if it's too small and I don't want it to be frustrating for you, you can go and buy some paint markers, or even just normal fine tip Crayola markers. The wood that I use, it takes these markers very well, and the fine tip is great for these little pieces. I got these, I think I got these from Sam's Club. These are actual paint markers, and they have a white color. So you could use paint markers if you want to, if that makes it easier for you. So anyways, if you plan on using this for the small areas, then you're gonna want some water and a paper towel that you can just dry it off in between colors. So let's get started. How I do my tier tray kits, I like to paint the pieces by color. If you did the Thanksgiving tier tray kit this month, it's much easier because there were 4 colors, maybe 5, 4 or 5 colors. I can't remember right now. And so there wasn't very many. This kit had 7 colors, so it is a little bit more in depth. So all around my table, what you can't see is you can set your little paint pots. I just have my actual paint sitting there, but I have the black pile, the white, purple, red, green, yellow, blue, blah, blah, blah. And then just follow the picture. If you plan on painting the same way that I painted mine, then I would just look at the picture and take piece by piece. So for instance, this, I put all of the happy birthday to you in one pile. And then since I'm doing the white color first, I like to go lightest to darkest. So since I'm doing the white color first, I put these candles in the white pile as well, because then I'll paint their stripes first. And then I plan on going top to bottom with this because really red, purple, and green, I mean, they're pretty similar. So I put this one, the back piece, in the red pile, if that makes sense. So once you get yours separated, let's go ahead and press pause, and then we'll do our white color first. So when you're ready, I obviously have a lot more in my pile because I'm painting multiple kits at once, but you're going to have this background piece, the shiplap background piece, the happy birthday to you words, all of the candles. I think you should have 4 candles in yours. The little cupcake toppers, these are from the banner. The big cupcake topper, which is from this piece, and the back of your tag. So let's get started. I'm going to start with, I like to start with the bigger pieces first. So the white color is the big wedge. You'll notice that you have 2 different size wedges. The big wedge is just because this has so much more of an area to cover that it would take a lot longer with the small wedge. I like the small wedges for these little pieces just because it helps you avoid getting paint all over the edges. And so it just gives it a cleaner look. But with these bigger pieces, you want the bigger wedge. So you will obviously just have your paint pot. So pretend that's inside my little pot. You can dump the paint out, but if you want to reuse the paint later for other crafts, then I would keep them in the pot, especially with this kit, because we're going to have to go back and paint polka dots. And so you don't want your paint to dry out. So what am I looking? Oh yes, I remember. I also am going to get my toothpick ready. And I'll show you why in just a second. So if you're new and you haven't, and you're new to this technique, you're going to take your wedge and you're just going to dip a little bit into the paint. You don't need a ton, because then on a clean area of your scrap board or paper, you're going to dab up and down. You don't want this flooded with paint, otherwise it's going to drip down the sides, it's going to make a mess, it's not going to look super clean. So you just want to plan on doing at least 2 coats of paint just to get the color completely done, or completely covered. It's going to look a lot more professional if we do multiple light coats versus one really heavy coat. So I'm going to start by painting like towards the edge, and then lightly go over that shiplap line, because I want to avoid getting paint. I'm gonna have to pause in a second. I had somebody just show up and my dog's gonna start barking. I want to avoid getting paint into the shiplap line. So I'm like very, very lightly dabbing over that line. I'm not putting pressure, and I'm not loading my wedge and immediately going onto the line, because that's going to get paint in there. So as you can see, if I'm doing light coats, my line stays super dark. Now, if you do get paint in there, it's really not a big deal. Okay, sorry. My husband had somebody stop by, and my dog does not like strange men, and she's a Mastiff, so she has a bark. She's like such a scaredy cat. She's gonna turn around and run away, but her bark is really loud and obnoxious. So, okay, as I was saying, if you happen to get paint in the shiplap lines, it's not a problem at all. But while the paint is wet, you need to take your toothpick and put it inside that line and drag it across, and it's gonna clear that paint out. But you wanna do it while it's still wet. So just light dabs. And this little piece, or this little etching right here, that's just a placement guide. So don't worry about covering that. Like, I'm not gonna worry at all, because you're gonna be able to see it through your paint. It's just a little helpful guide. I'll show you that piece when we get there. Okay, so this, you can tell that like it's not super well covered, and that's fine. I'm gonna get it on the next one. So I'm gonna actually set this aside to dry. I like to paint all of my pieces one coat, and then I go back and paint another. It might be a little loud. My husband is selling his drums, and so they are going to be playing it. Actually, I'm not gonna do the tag, because I wanted to show you these little pieces. The tag is gonna be the same exact process as this, just dab, dab. So let's do, yeah, we'll do the candle. With the cone, it's gonna be the same thing, just really lightly over that. If you get paint in it, use your toothpick to clear it out. So how I use the wedge, like I say, you can go ahead and use this brush. If you do, I would dip it in the paint your candles with this, then immediately clean it off with water, and then just wipe it on your paper towel like that to dry it. You don't want to squeeze the bristles and pull them, or else they're going to come out. This is not a high quality brush. Or if you notice on this side of the wedge, it is really thin, and it's actually perfect. So I did the same thing. I dabbed it in the paint, and then I'm going to dab it off on the side so that it's not going to spill over. And then I'm just going to pretty much just line it up on that stripe and just lightly dab up and down to paint into that stripe. So that is how I painted mine. However, if you're feeling like that's not giving you enough control, if you don't like using the wedge, I wanted to give you the option of that little detail brush. So that's going to be the process for all the white. So I'm looking, I don't think there's anything new besides the shiplap lines and the little pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint all of mine. And then I'm going to show you really quickly. Once it's dry, I sent you with this sandpaper. Now, I did a poll a while ago, and the majority of you do not use the sandpaper, and that's totally fine. When you paint the wood, it's naturally going to raise the wood grain. So if you feel it, it's going to feel kind of rough, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want a really smooth finish, once your first coat is dry, I don't even put any pressure down at all. I just very lightly go over it like that. I'm not even putting pressure. And then when you feel it, it's super smooth. It's going to give you, as you can see, it kind of gives you a dusting. And that is actually paint. So, it gives you a little bit of a dusting of paint. So I don't want to pull paint up. I'm just trying to smooth it out. So that's going to make hopefully your final coat. It's going to just make it appear smoother and flatter, and it's just going to look a lot nicer. But that is totally optional. So I'm going to finish the white. And then, so I'm going to press stop or pause, and then we'll come back when it's time for the next color. Okay, the lighting is really terrible because I had to shut my blinds, and so I had to use my overhead lights. The sun was right in my eyes, and so I'm so sorry. There's so many shadows, but I finally got all my white painted. I ended up doing 2 coats on everything, but on the bigger pieces, so on the shiplap backer and on the tags, I did not a third full coat, but if I noticed that there were some spots that were kind of sparse, I just went back and did a light coat over those. So white is like the hardest color to get full coverage, just because it's so light. So you do have to be a little bit patient and maybe do multiple coats of that. Okay, my next color that I'm gonna work with, I'm going to do red. So I'm going to be showing you how you can use your detail brush on the cake portion, and then you will use a small wedge for this color. You'll notice that my wedges look a little dirty. If you have kids that love crafting, or if you yourself like to do a lot of crafts, I rinse my wedges out when they need to be wet. If you allow them to dry out, just throw them away, call it a loss. But as soon as you're done with one color, you go and rinse it out. You can reuse these for lots of different things. So I like to just throw them in the craft closet, so then if my kids want to do something, then I have extra supplies. So this is going to be pretty straightforward with this color. It's the same as the white. I just wanted to show you how I get a cleaner edge on the cake. So you can do 2 different things. You can use your wedge and just kind of like side it up to that line and kind of like drag it across so that it's a straight line, and then do your dabbing. Or that's where this little guy can come in handy. I would just dip and then I wouldn't go straight to the line because you're gonna have a lot more paint on there right away. And so I get most of the paint off and then go and kind of drag it along just to create kind of like that barrier. And then you can use the paintbrush to paint the rest of it, but I'm gonna go through and use the wedge just because it's faster, but then it also gives it a more even, I'm not gonna see the brush marks. It will just give it a nice flat finish. pull the paint up just so that my wedge doesn't have to get super close, and then I'm not gonna have to try to cover over on the purple when I do that next. And then I'm gonna go ahead and set this in the water, brush it across a few times just to clean that off, and then I'll do my wedge. Dip, dab, and then dab again. So the ones that I'm going to do red are the number 5, the number 0. Honestly, there was no rhyme or reason to, I mean, there was, but you can do your numbers however you want. I basically just did repeating. So I went like red, yellow, blue. Sorry, I'm looking at mine to see what color did I do. I'm looking at the painted version. I did red, yellow, green, blue, purple. And then I did 0 is red, 1s I did yellow, 2 I did green. So if you want to do different colors, that's totally fine. And then one of your banners, I did red. And then with these candles, I'm gonna do the same technique. I'm gonna dip this end, and I'm just going to lightly clean, sorry, my family's eating dinner and it can get kind of rowdy over here. And then I'm gonna do in between the white. Let's see, what else? I don't think there is anything special other than that with the red color. And then, what am I gonna do next? I'll press pause because there might be another special technique for it. I don't think so, actually. I think, unless I come up on something, then I'll come back and tell you. But I think I'm gonna finish the rest of the colors. So in here, when I do the purple, I'm gonna I'll dry off my paintbrush like this. Make sure that it's completely clear of paint. You don't want to transfer any paint over. And then I would line the purple on this end, line the purple on this end, and then use the wedge for the rest. With the cupcake, the bottom of the cupcake, you do the same as you did with the cupcake swirl, just super, super light coats. If you get any paint in, use your toothpick to clear it out. But I don't think there's any other special thing until we get to, I'll show you really quick. When you get to the black color, so for this piece, this is what is going to hold our numbers. So I painted my frame black. Then you will have noticed in your bag, it came with 2 of these pieces. So the skinnier piece, you don't have to do anything with. I did not paint mine because you're not going to see it. So what this is it's just a spacer. So we are going to, when we're all done, we're going to place that right here. And that's what the numbers are actually going to sit on. And then we're going to place this one on top. And then the numbers can fit behind there. So you can, I mean, if you wanted to paint this black or whatever color you can, you're just not gonna see it. So I set mine aside. So other than that, I don't think there's anything special. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish painting the rest of the pieces. And then I will come back on here when it's time to add the details like the polka dots. I do want to mention, just in case this is your very first kit, these blue tweezers, the only thing I use them for, I don't think I mentioned this in the last video, is I get paint all over my hands, so I don't care when I'm painting. Or if you want to keep it a little bit cleaner, you can use these tweezers, just kind of pinch it and hold it while you're painting. The little pieces, these really come in handy. So optional, they make life a little easier. So I'll come back on if I run into anything that I need to mention to you, but otherwise I will finish painting all my colors. Okay, I moved to a different area hoping for better lighting, but I don't think that's gonna happen. It's too cloudy today. I'm just gonna quickly show you how to do the polka dots. So as you can see, I did polka dots on most of my pieces, It just adds a little fun element. These are completely optional if you don't want polka dots. If you think it looks too busy, then go ahead and skip ahead to where the next part of the video, I'm going to show you how to put each piece together. But just in case you do want to do polka dots, the fastest thing is if you have a marker or like a paint pen, then you can just dot. Otherwise, if you don't have that, then how I did my pieces is I used this end of the brush, and then I actually used a baby wipe, but I will go ahead and get a damp paper towel. And so for instance, I did blue. If you go to the Facebook post, you can blow the picture up so that you can see the colors better if you wanted to match mine exactly. Otherwise, just have fun with it. Like I did kind of like a funfetti version on this one, and I did all the colors. This one, I just did green because I wanted to match the candle. I mean, just have free creative reign. On the numbers, I did all white just to kind of just to keep them more uniform. But I'm just gonna show you one piece, and then I'm gonna press pause and wait for everything to dry. And then I will come back on to put everything together. So have your paint pot. I get this pen or this paintbrush. You can use anything with a round tip. And I just dip and then dot. And that is it. So how I normally do my polka dots to try to make them look somewhat uniform, but also varied, is I usually do corner to corner, which I'm gonna stop here just because the string shows there. So I do corners, and then I'm going to do, you can either do the middle, or since this is a bigger area, I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 in the middle. And it doesn't have to be exact. Mine are not gonna be perfectly spaced, and that's totally fine. And then I'm going to go into the middle and kind of try to match these two sides. Obviously, I did not do great at spacing, and that's okay. And then I'm just gonna go in between, if that makes sense. So it's just a lot of back and forth dotting. And so then that piece is finished. Make sure that you don't touch it until it's completely dry, or else you're gonna smear your dots. And then if you just wanna blow up the piece, anything that has the blue, I would finish with the blue color, wipe it off, and then go to the next color. I mean, you can just do piece by piece if you wanted, because it's easy to clean your paintbrush. But finish your polka dots if that's what you want to do. I'm going to do that, wait for it to dry, and then we will put everything together. Okay, once you have everything painted and when it's completely dry, now it is time to put everything together. So a few months ago, I mentioned in the Facebook group about these sharp tweezers. I get them on Amazon. You don't have to have them. You can really just use your fingernail. I cut myself when I was making dinner tonight. So anyways, it just makes it easier if you plan on doing a lot of kits. It will make it easier to peel, but they are not absolutely necessary by any means. So there is an adhesive on the back of every piece. If you have been a member for a while, we used to use super glue, which is fine, but it can be really, really messy. So this makes it so much easier. You're just gonna peel this adhesive backing off. And as you can see, it kind of looks like it's just the wood background, but if you like move it around, you can see how it's shiny and it's a sticky back. So once this adhesive is down, if you barely set it down, you're gonna be able to reposition it. That's okay. Once you press, it's set. So you want to make sure, I just eyeball it. I just try to get from the top of these peas even with the bottom of the peas, if that makes sense at all. And then I press down and it is permanently stuck. You want to make sure that it is where you want to be before you press down. Otherwise, you may not be able to remove it without damage. There are a couple tips I can give you if that accidentally happens, but I can't guarantee anything. This is a permanent adhesive. That looks pretty even. Press down. And then on this piece, I did the U first, just because I wanted it to be towards the end. As you can see, I just made like a little gap. And the two. And then for my candles, I did the large candle first. And all I did was, I didn't want it to go over the bottom because when I'm leaning it, I don't want it to hit. So I wanted the corner to make sure that it lines up with the bottom. And then I just kind of put it on an angle, just, you don't have to, just to be a little fun. And then we'll put this one on an angle too. Oh. Press down. And then we have our first piece is finished. Set that aside. Let's do our tag next. I'm gonna do this circle first and just line it up in the middle of that hole. And then our letters. Oh my gosh. Sometimes it doesn't come up super easy and it makes me want to lose my mind. So I'm just using the etching as a guide. You can see it through the paint pretty easily. So that is your guide for placing these letters. I try to do the etching on most things, but there are some things that either, like the happy birthday to you, that was my dog snoring. Anyways, the happy birthday to you on the cake, I just forgot to make that step. But sometimes I don't add it because, actually I'm gonna do the topping first. You might want a little bit more freedom in deciding where to put your wording or your pieces. So I just, for the top, I just lined up the edges and made sure that they were even, and then I'm gonna press down. And then we'll do, and all I did was just eyeball it in the middle and press down. Okay, now for the twine. So in your bag, it should have come with 3 12-inch pieces. If you have like birthday ribbon or a fun colored string, that would be fun to do. But whereas I didn't know, I figured that's something that you could personalize your own kits with. I just did twine just because it's universal. It doesn't matter boy or girl. So anyways, so, oh, sorry, I didn't mention. So I take my twine, make the edges pretty even. It doesn't have to be exact because I'm gonna trim mine. And then fold it in half, end to end. So then I take the closed end of it and I'm going to feed it through this hole. Create a bigger loop and take these ends and pull them through. You can just tie them into a knot if you want. This makes it so that it is removable. Maybe you wanted to make an interchangeable ribbon. I'm gonna go ahead and trim mine just because that's pretty long, which if you like it, then leave it. If not, then I'm just gonna trim it, and now it's nice and even. So it'd be fun to make this interchangeable, or just do the twine, and that we'll just match it kid to kid. Okay, let's do our banner. Okay, let's see. On the green one, I did my purple candle. The red one, I did my purple cupcake. And then I did the green dots, so green cupcake. And then red. You can do yours however you want. So I'm gonna put my cupcake toppers on first. Same thing, I'm just going to go edge to edge. Now, if you are newer to the tier tray kits or these kits just in general, and I am going too fast, please reach out to me and let me know. I do polls in my Facebook group all the time, and the 100% unanimous said they just wanted a quick tips and tutorials for these kits. So I used to film them from beginning to end, but they were really, really long, and nobody said they needed that. So I'm not opposed to you reaching out if you have any questions at all. So I peeled off the back of this, and then I'm just gonna, same thing. Sorry, normally I put my head right over it, but then I'm gonna block the video. So I just eyeball it into the middle and then press down. And same with the candles. Okay. And so then this banner, I would do cupcake candle. It came with a 3-foot long piece of twine. All you're going to do is just string it through each piece. And that's so that you can, oh, I made a little knot. Once you get all of them on, you can tie it around your tier tray kit. I usually tie mine around the top tier, and then I secure it with a piece of tape behind it. Otherwise, at least with mine, it will eventually slip. So I just put like a piece of Scotch tape on it, and it works out great. Okay, I'm not gonna show you this piece because it's just the top and then birthday and wishes. So let's go over this piece because you might have questions on it. I started before I filmed, I was not even thinking, and I already put down this piece. So the one that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I did not paint, it's the skinnier rectangle, as you can see. So I just unpeeled it and I used that etching behind it and pressed it down in place. So this is a spacer because once you put, oh, I already packaged up the numbers. Once you put the numbers, if this was just sitting there, then the numbers would sit on top, which probably would work fine because more than likely you're gonna have this leaning back a little bit. But just in case, I wanted to give you a space, and then the numbers can fit behind here. So let's do our frame first. So I just basically, before I press down, I just eyeball it on one end, and then I kind of go to the opposite, and I feel with my fingers to make sure that it is even before I press down. I'm just kind of manipulating it a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna press down. And with these frames, just make sure that you hit all around it to make sure that there's not a weak part that's going to pop up eventually. Now, for this piece, here's the issue. So if you peeled this whole thing off, it's all gonna be sticky. So your numbers, if you put them behind here, they have a chance of sticking to it if it's a tight fit. And you don't want that. So what I did is I took a scalpel, which you can take a pair of sharp scissors if you don't have, this isn't a scalpel, it's an X-Acto, a craft knife. And then I'm just going to cut this adhesive like just a little tiny, tiny sliver. So, because I want that to stay. And I'm pressing pretty aggressively because I want to be able to peel it all up. And then I'm going to peel up the fatter end of it because I want most of it to be sticky, but I want there to be a little bit of adhesive left. I probably made this slightly too skinny. You can do a little bit thicker. I don't even know if you can see that. But then what I'm going to do is you can either keep it perfectly even with that spacer, like the bottom part of it. I actually overlapped mine just a little bit, and now I need to hold it up so that I can eyeball it with, I eyeball it with this shiplap line down here to make sure that it's straight. And the reason I made that little gap, as you can, I actually don't know if you're gonna be able to tell from the angle, probably not, dang it. The bottom kind of overlaps. I don't know if you can tell from that. But the reason I did that is because I didn't want too much of this overhang and making the numbers stick. So then what you would do is you would put this on your little stand or lean it up against anything, and then you put your numbers behind here. So depending on how old the kid is that you're celebrating for their birthday. And that is it. I'm going to finish this piece. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to film or talk you through it in more detail. I never want my kits to be something that you are frustrated or this was a really long and detailed one. Some of my kits are really fast. This one was really detailed. So if you have any questions at all, this should be something fun and relaxing that you can use over and over again. And I hope that it brings you a lot of joy. So please let me know if you have any questions.